welcome to another one of our message mindset trainer tips, tricks, and tools. Today, let me go ahead and actually get this shared. That would be helpful. All right. Today, we are so pleased to have guest trainer Rita Nethersole. Rita, I've always wondered how to actually say Poussaint?
Poussaint.
Poussaint. I wasn't sure if you did an American or a more French. Rita Poussaint Nethersole, who is, like the rest of the message mindset trainers, she is a certified interpretive trainer. She is going to be talking to us today about gratitude in interpretation. Just a little quick about the message mindset community and trainers before we get going. The four of us, you can see our images up the top. I'm Kristen Robinson. We have Gabby Plumasso, Monique Thompson, and Nikki Rohde. We are a group of interpretive trainers who came together some years ago looking to support one another in our work as trainers, working to further the goals and the spread of interpretive principles so that more people can experience this work in their efforts of getting our publics to think, feel, and do things. You can learn a little bit more about us by visiting our website. Here you see it on screen. You can find it at www.messagemindset.com. And out there you can see some of the different things that we do, whether it is an online skill clinic or whether it is offering the NAI's certificate in interpretive guiding. And the certificate in interpretive hosting, I believe is the other one. And then we have various random events and skill clinics and roundtable discussions like this one. So if any of these things are training and webinars that you are looking for, please go ahead, jump over to messagemindset.com and take a look. All right, you can see any of our previous events out there on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel, and you can see various trainings, lectures, and roundtable discussions. I think with that, I am going to pass us over to Rita, who will be talking to us about gratitude in interpretation.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see you guys. Thank you for coming. And that's important because this is a roundtable discussion, so I really want to hear your voices. My name is Rita Poussaint Nethersole, and in addition to being an NAI trainer, I am and have been for 30 plus years. I started when I was 10. A volunteer and zookeeper, keeper aide, interpreter, and interpretive trainer at Franklin Park Zoo in Boston. And I have to tell you, my topic is gratitude. And I have to say that in the midst of the disaster that is our current governmental and socioeconomic state, I've begun meditating more on gratitude. Well, I didn't immediately start because it seems like a really strange time for gratitude. And I don't know about you, but I suspect it's true of many of us, but I've lost a lot lately. I've lost family members. I've lost a bit of my sense of my invulnerable health. I've lost a dear uncle. I've lost an election. And I've lost a sense of who and what my country really is. So I've spent a lot of the last 9 months in a state of semi-paralysis. And I've been angry and despairing like I've never been before. So it seems like a really strange time for gratitude. Just wasn't feeling it. And yet I do know I have reasons to be grateful. Grateful for the many privileges and resources I have, for the family and friends that I have, for the education and the dreams that I have, that will hopefully allow me to withstand what is likely to be a devastating storm for many people. But it really feels strange trying to be grateful for something that's simply not being as harmed as somebody else. So that seems like not a good start for thinking about gratitude. But let me tell you this what happened and why I'm talking about gratitude. One Saturday in April, it was a rainy, cold spring New England day, and a posse of over a dozen turkeys had surrounded our education building, education base camp, as we call it. And a large tom seemed dedicated to challenging each one of us as we came out of the door. And finally, we just escaped out of the side door and avoided him. Um, so the end of the day comes, and it's a drizzly day. Nobody's left in the zoo, except that this woman, a guest, is walking to the far exit, and the turkey comes out of nowhere. The male turkey comes out of nowhere and heads towards her. And she's all, oh, isn't he cute? And I'm like, oh, God. And sure enough, he goes after her. And I had my umbrella, so I waved the turkey off, and she takes off. And what results is that I'm alone in the zoo with a very angry turkey who is chasing me from one end of the zoo to the other. I'm swinging my umbrella. I'm cursing and screaming, hoping I can get away to the gate, hoping I can open the gate and close it before it gets me. And I made it. I managed to unlock the fence and barely escape. So I made it home, none the worse for wear. And the next morning, I was awakened at 5 a.m. by a loud, and I'm like, it's still dark and it's still drizzling. What? And I looked outside and I saw a huge male turkey um, just in the tree outside my bedroom window on the second floor. Um, it surely could not be the same turkey, right? And I was willing to just pull down the shade and go back to sleep, but my dog would not. So I spent the next 2 hours outside listening to my dog growl and bark and chase this turkey all over the neighborhood. And I told my friend about this, my friend Olivia, who is an interdenominational minister. And she said, you need to look up what kind of medicine in Native American cultures that turkeys represent. And I did. And I found that among most indigenous Native people, turkeys have a special meaning, very special. They're very important animals. They represent abundance, fertility, and gratitude. So gratitude has been literally chasing me. And I started to think maybe it's time to let it catch me. And so I started thinking about gratitude and what it meant. And, you know, I think it's important that when I say gratitude, I'm like, what do I mean? Because I think gratitude is more than a passing feeling. It's it's both a recognition and a response. It's not only being thankful, but also being ready to show appreciation in return. And so I find that as interpreters, that mindset can help us connect with audiences and to the resources we interpret for. Um, I decided to look in Buddhism for a meaning for um, uh, gratitude. And the word in Pali is katanu. And katanu literally means one who knows what has been done. And so in this iteration of gratitude, it's more than a feeling. It's a practice. It's an awareness. It's not contentment or grateful for luck or happenstance. It's gratitude for what has been done by those known and unknown for your benefit. So in Pali, the word katanu captures gratitude as recognition, truly seeing what's been done for us. And it reminds us that gratitude isn't passive. It's an act of awareness and acknowledgement. And so I really started to think about it in the context of what we try to evoke as interpreters. In psychology, we talk about the three aspects of personality: affect, cognition, and conation, which I think really connects to gratitude as well, because these are all things that we try to evoke when we're talking to our guests. But I wanted to really think a little bit more about gratitude. And a friend of mine, Catherine, she's a statistician at Children's Hospital, and she says that everything can be measured. So I decided to measure gratitude at my zoo. And the way I did it is to measure the thank yous. How many times did people say thank you to me? Just count them. How many times? Under what circumstances? Did they mean it or not? And so starting in May, I have my little, I don't think I have it with my little clicker that counts, and I've been counting thank yous. I'm up to 687, in case you're wondering. Um, I chose 1,000 as my point because it just reminded me of the saying that a voyage of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So I'm counting thank yous and trying to think about what that means in terms of um, what I'm doing as an interpreter, building gratitude in our guests, which I think is important because when we talk about the staircase to stewardship, I think that gratitude is a major force. When you think about the things that you're grateful for, the things that you have gratitude for, um, I think it's important to think about them in the context of what have you done with that gratitude? What do you do? Gratitude really kind of is an awareness and a feeling that I think encourages action. And so I'm trying really hard to uh, look at my guests and look at our visitors and talk to them about the things that matter. Now I think it's important because it's one of the feelings and emotions of awareness that cause people to act. People who feel gratitude also feel the impulse to act in response to it. And I think it's important to cultivate it. And I'm not talking about this sort of obligatory, almost guilt-based thank you, but that real deep awareness that someone has done something for you because, like the L'Oreal commercial, you're worth it. And so I think that I've been looking at what it when people say thank you, what they mean when they say it. And I've also started fiddling with the notion of, well, what do I say in response? Um, the one I hate the most is no problem. I find myself saying it and I don't like it because it implies that someone thought there was a problem and I'm affirming that there wasn't. Okay, if I had to do something big and above and big and beyond, okay, yeah. But how do I respond to other people's gratitude? You're welcome. You're very welcome. Um, Thank you for coming to visit. Thank you for, your membership. So I'm struggling with that a great deal. Um, so I sort of like to open up the floor to um, a conversation about gratitude. Let me just tell you what happened to me last week, though. Um, I work in the butterfly exhibit at the zoo. And one of the things we have is the eclosion boxes where we have all the chrysalids lined up, and every day butterflies are born. They hatch. And we had a father there, and you can watch it, and it's amazing. I still am amazed by it every time I go. And so we had a family there, mother with a little one in the stroller, a 5-year-old, and dad. And I pointed out to them that there was a butterfly hatching as we spoke. And they come running over and they're looking, and Dad is just mesmerized by this. And this goes on for about 10 minutes, and Dad is just like into it. He has not left the enclosure box. The kids are running around the rest of the exhibit. Mom is, rocking the little one. They really want to go. They're done. But Dad is still really into it, to the point that his wife is coming up going, honey, the kids are getting anxious. The kids are getting, he's watching. And I'm talking to him through this whole thing. It was really funny when his son, the 5-year-old, walks up to him and in his perfect, gentle parenting voice that he's obviously learned from his parents, he goes, Dad, we've been here for 10 minutes. Don't you think we ought to be moving on to something else? I had to step behind the shed to laugh after that one because it was just too much. So finally the butterfly makes it out and the dad is happy. He's seen it, the whole thing. And he gets up and he starts to leave and he looks at me and he says, thank you. And he steps away and he turns back. He said, no, thank you. And they left. And what I'm working on these last few days is, what was he thanking me for? It was obviously sincere. It was obviously deeply meant, but I'm not sure I know what it was for. So on that note, let me open up the floor to anyone, and I'd like to hear what you think gratitude means in your life and as an interpreter.
I know one of the things that I was thinking of, Rita, when you were talking about different, a couple things, how gratitude can be measured. One of mine was like, okay, how often am I saying thank you, and how often am I saying it genuinely? One of the personal works that I did and I'm still, of course, you still practice things all the time, is always be truthful with what I'm saying. So if I'm saying thank you and it's not truthful, why am I saying that? Why don't I say something else instead? So I've gotten to the point, I think, where when I say it, I'm going, okay, what, at least internally, what is it that I'm thankful for? And that really helps. And then the other one that I do struggle with a lot too, just like you're saying, is how to respond to that. I use no problem a lot. I've never really thought of it that way, but I appreciate your perspective on it. Um, but I've been trying to, instead of just sending it back, oh, thank you for saying thank you, is I'm trying to absorb their thank you so that it's more meaningful to them, instead of just kind of deflecting it back, which is nice. And I guess that's why I've always done it, because I was always taught it was nice. But um, I always thought it was really greedy to say you're welcome, like, oh, I've taken this thing from you. But if they're giving it and it's gratitude or it's love or it's care, isn't it best to take it in that spirit and promote that, I guess, with a you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought of it this way until you kind of shared some of what you did, Rita. But I have noticed that recently there's 2 times where I give very sincere thank yous. One of them is more general. I'm appreciative that somebody just gave of their time. I'm still processing an experience, or it was a very brief experience. And so it is sincere, but it's more of like entry level gratitude, if you will. I am appreciative. I am appreciative without really being able to articulate or feeling like it's necessary. And then there are special moments. I was just down in Monticello, and the guide did such a absolutely masterful job at several different things that I was over the moon. This was really a spectacular tour. And when it was done, my thank you came with, here's what I'm telling you thank you for. That was just, and in this particular case, he did just spectacular transitions from an object to, to this, to this, to this, to this. And all of a sudden it was fluid. We got a little detail, and now we're right back into this fairly cerebral focus of the tour. But it was just transitions like I'd never heard somebody do. And so I told him why I was saying thank you.
What did you
And
say? What did you
uh,
say?
specifically, I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly, but roughly it was, thank you so much. That was one of the most masterful examples of transitioning from an actual object to an intangible idea. And I gave him an example from this watch to the lock of hair to Abigail Adams, to wives to Abigail Adams, with a little praise for throwing the women in there. And then you arrived at Jefferson and Adams and their ideas for the country. I haven't heard transitioning that smooth in a very, very long while. It was masterfully done. Thank you. So I bookended with some thank yous and gave him an example of why I was appreciative. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking of now, which I don't know that I really stopped to take in at the time, is that thank you landed so differently on his face than when I just give somebody a quick thank you. And I would now maybe assume it's because he had those specifics as to why. It might also have been that I was just being effusive, but
And
maybe
that works.
maybe the why is what mattered. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I think about the father in the butterfly exhibit, I realize that there's a number of ways that you could sort of assess or understand his gratitude. One of which is that I realized I had given him permission for 10 minutes to be a geeky 10-year-old again and not dad. And I don't know about any of y'all, but there are just times you need to not be a parent. But there's just the idea that for 10 minutes he was allowed to be, 10-year-old geeky kid thrilled about. And I realized that the way that, and then that got me to thinking, well, wait, how does he think I gave him permission, or how did I help this? And I realized that I never stopped talking to him. As long as he stood there, I talked to him. Even though the kids were coming, even though his wife was coming, I didn't stop talking to him. And I didn't think about it in the moment. But I realized later that that was giving him permission. I'm not stopping. I'll take my cue from you about when this conversation is over. And so I think that that was one of the things that, and it was also nice to hear as he left, he went, "We're members, right?" To his wife. He said, we're members, right?" And I'm thinking, well, good. Glad he's a member. I wondered if that would have been enough to make him a member. Because if it was, I was going to really push that. But I was just, there are just so many reasons for his thank you. And in one way, I was really glad he didn't tell me why, because now I can envision it and I can sort of sort through it and go and maybe come up with something he hadn't come up with. But I think you're right. When we tell people, and I think that's part of what gratitude is, the impulse, not just to feel to be grateful, but to act.
And I would love to add to this. I'm so grateful that you brought this up, Rita, not only to act, but I feel like gratitude also opens us up to other perspectives, not necessarily agreeing, but having a pathway to understanding what someone else might believe, feel about a particular topic, even if it's in a direct opposition to how we feel. It creates space for, I think we talked about earlier, building empathy and creating community, which is so needed today. When we think about the division that's happening in our world, it creates connection with others. It's something that people can agree on and explore together as opposed to apart.
Yeah.
So I cultivate gratitude myself. Anecdotally, I try to in the morning when I wake up, think about three things, 3 people, events, ideas that I'm grateful for. And I know research shows that when we cultivate gratitude in ourselves as a practice, it can be deeper and wider and go beyond ourselves and have reciprocity both in our own lives and in other lives. And I think, as we were discussing before, it creates resiliency, which is an important characteristic today.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not disciplined enough to think about gratitude in the morning. Think about much of anything in the morning. But I think I think that's a really important point, because I started coming at this from the perspective of cultivating gratitude in my guests, with the people that come to see it. How do I cultivate gratitude? I see gratitude, like I said, one of those steps to stewardship. And that gratitude is one of those, an awareness that would move people to become more involved in the zoo and more engaged with the zoo and become members and come to events. But I think it's really important what you say, Monique, about cultivating it within yourself, um, as a practice. And I think that has a number of important elements to it, because obviously, if you cultivate gratitude in yourself, you're setting a tone for your interpretation. I think you're opening up your interpretation to that sense of gratitude when you have gratitude yourself. I think it's a tone that you can set. It's not just a measurement. In my thinking about this, I've been using gratitude as a measure, because we all know that when we talk about goals and objectives and measurements, that's a very difficult thing to do as an interpreter. Sometimes I think that we know when we're doing a good job, but measuring it is a whole different thing, and that gets really, really difficult. Um, and so I was thinking of it in terms of, okay, gratitude is a measure of how well I've done. But I'm beginning to think more and more, based on your words, is measuring it in myself.
I think it's important because as interpreters, we model, especially as trainers, what we hope our students can take away. And I find that when I am cultivating that practice with myself, I can then fully and freely ask my students, what are you grateful for? And come from a place of practicing that and allowing them to practice that as well in their own lives.
Mhm. How do we do that in these times when they're, like I said, I had to be dragged kicking and screaming into gratitude. How do we do that? Hopefully not kicking and screaming when a wild turkey, but I mean, what are the ways that we as trainers can sort of, I hate that tilde term, provoke gratitude um, in people?
I think that's such a good question. And I think you answered it when you were talking at the beginning of turning to gratitude in some ways as a remedy to what you were experiencing in your own life and what was happening around you, that was something you wanted to explore. So I loved that example that you brought for yourself. So it gives you an answer.
I just need to get a group of turkeys to go on a gratitude tour of the United States, but I mean, I think you're right. I not only was I not feeling gratitude, I think I didn't want to feel it, because I think in my heart I already knew that gratitude would change me, that gratitude would force me to do things, um, because it is an awareness. I've always felt gratitude as an awareness rather than a feeling. Um, but yeah, I think I didn't want to think about gratitude because um, it was just going to be more than I could bear um, in these times. You mean think life is awful, you know, they're grabbing my neighbors off the streets, you know, I've had deaths in my family, health issues. Well, I don't want to feel grateful. I don't want to feel grateful. And I don't want to feel gratitude, and I don't want to have to do what gratitude would make me do, what it demands of me.
And I'll just share one more thing, just having, you know, really struggled in my own life with losses, is that I don't believe myself that gratitude diminishes loss.
Right.
It reshapes it or reframes it in a different lens, hopefully in a place that allows us to come from resiliency to respond in a better, maybe more healthy way. That's my own thoughts.
Well, I don't think that's just your own thoughts. I think that that's something that a lot of people are coming to. We were talking a little earlier about the AIDS epidemic, and there was a line that activists used to say. Maybe I can even find it. Let's see, maybe I can find it. That during the AIDS epidemic, what you would do is you'd bury your friends in the morning, you protest in the afternoon, and you dance all night. And you know, I think this is, you know, the kind of thing that made me stop and go, oh, um, gratitude is about resilience, and it allows us to keep doing what we, and one of the other things that's happening in the Black megaverse is a sense of self-care and joy, um, because as a African American woman, um, you know, what's been happening the last several months is very difficult. But to understand self-care and gratitude as a political act, as an act of resistance, has helped me sort of, mostly because if my enemy doesn't want me to do it, I'm very likely to do it. So that the contrarian in me will do that. But I do think that the gratitude has allowed me to deal with what I think was very difficult circumstances that continue. So I'm not saying I'm any less troubled by what's going on or having a hard time dealing with. Um, but I do think that gratitude does allow me to approach it differently and to be able to remember that a lot of my job is to spark joy in other people and to spark gratitude in other people. Um, and there are times in my life when I've done things for other people that I would have never done for myself. And I think gratitude is one of those things that recognizes that. The idea that you didn't do it for yourself, you did it for someone else, and people's recognition of that. Um, so one of the things that I've kind of encouraging people to do is to think about things that you have done for other people that you have not done for yourself, and what tend not to do for yourself. Because there's a lot of us out there doing that. There are a lot of us there are a lot of people doing things for other people that they wouldn't do for themselves. I remember when I first started working in higher education, and I became a dean, and I've always had a hard time with small talk and schmoozing and all of that stuff. But the president of the university came to one of my meetings with like my students, and I would have never introduced myself to the president of the university. This is the president of MIT. I mean, you know, this is a big guy, important guy. But my students were there. And that meant I had to take each one of my students up to the president of the university and introduce them to him. And it was so difficult. And I would have never done it for myself. But I needed to do it for them. And the response that I got from them was really, I now understand it as gratitude. But their response to it was really heartwarming. I'm not sure that they knew I couldn't do it for myself, but had done it for them. But at least they knew I had done it for them.
I have a handful of kind of thoughts that have come up as I've listened to you talk, but before I take up any more airtime, John, Tracy, or Danny, do any of you have anything that you'd like to share? Zero pressure. I just don't want to deny you an opportunity. Okay. In no particular order, like Rita, you have just, because this happens when I get really excited by things somebody is saying, my brain just goes out and starts grabbing things. I am teaching a CIG right now, and it has really struck me that when students are writing these goals and objectives and measurements, about half of them are writing for one of their objectives or goals is for students to appreciate. And right, and appreciation is not gratitude, but they are related.
They are related.
I even when I turned my camera off for half a second, I went and grabbed my Brene Brown, who, if you don't know her, she's a sociologist who's done a lot of research into emotion. And this particular book is it's not a book you read start to finish. It's a collection of different emotions and their linkages and how they relate. And the thing that she writes here in gratitude, it appears many of the emotions that are good for us, joy, contentment, and gratitude, to name a few, have appreciation in common. And when we're thinking about, when you ask the question, how can we maybe catalyze gratitude? I've thought of it as a mindset, and I have as well. But I also, as I've listened to this conversation, I'm wondering now if appreciation is the mindset, and when it also involves our heart, our joy, our connection, it elevates, then it's gratitude, which is the difference between some of the thank yous I've given people who, because they've given up their time, and I appreciate that. And this young man who brought me all the way to gratitude just by doing his work well and with care. And then the last thing that I was thinking about was, you and Monique were bringing up loss. And I've thought about this, and sometimes the loss I'm experiencing is for somebody who is still living, but is no longer the person they always were, which is in some ways some of the hardest loss for me. And this came from somebody who is a Buddhist practitioner who was guiding me on some work. And they said, start with being grateful for the relationship you've had. Because the feeling of loss you would only have right now had you not loved with and for that person so strongly for so long. And from there, maybe you will start to be able even to be grateful for the pain, because it is a reminder of the love. I will not say that I always get there. I rarely get there. I don't like feeling the pain. I like to remember the love. I like to call up those memories. But I do try to remember that the pain that I am feeling would not be possible if there wasn't deep caring in some other area. Even the socio-political landscape, places where something that big causes me actual pain, is only because I'm deeply invested in some other aspect of that. I wouldn't have the pain without the love. So just some random thoughts to throw back into your mix here.
It's interesting that you bring up the word appreciation, because I appreciate you is trending in terms of word usage the last couple of years. And I hate it because grammatically, I hate it. The English teacher in me does. No, I appreciate this. I appreciate, not I appreciate you. But I do think it is an interesting way of saying thank you. I appreciate you, and not just on some level, despite my English teacher past, there's a part of me that particularly appreciates that use because it says, I appreciate you, not what you did, but who you are. And I think that's a really interesting thing. So even as I'm fussing with, oh, bad grammar, I think it still says something very interesting about the fact that appreciation is trending, you know. So we're getting with what 4 minutes to it from, I'm sorry. What I'd like to encourage us to do as we leave is to think about gratitude and sort of next steps, recognizing gratitude in you, recognizing gratitude in your practice, in your teaching. But what are the next steps? What do we do once we recognize we're sensing gratitude? Again, I think one of the things that we're recognizing is that gratitude doesn't always only exist or arise in calm moments. It can coexist with grief and struggle and activism and and care and joy. Like I said, I think that's one of the things that's trending very much on the Black, metaverse online, which is being intentional about gratitude and joy. And that the sort of idea that you can take my job, you can take the laws away that protect me, but you're not taking my joy. You're not taking my gratitude. So I think that as we go forward in terms of dealing with all of the things we have to deal with, and not just stuff from this particular political situation, but sort of in life. This is not the first time that any of us have experienced tragedy or difficulty or difficult times, but to think about, once when we feel gratitude, what do we do with it? Gabby's back. Okay, there she is. Any thoughts, questions, ideas?
I was just going to say, I think it's important to create space, even in difficult topics, to talk about gratitude or to invite people to consider gratitude when we're talking about whatever topic we are talking about, but having that be part of the fabric of what we do, I think is important because of that reciprocity, because of cultivating community, because of considering appreciation for our sites and for the world as well, beyond that at large.
Tracy, I saw you unmute.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really love this topic, and it's a whole world, gratitude. There's so many aspects of it, and relating it with interpretation and visitors is a really neat approach. And I see gratitude as having kind of a past, a present, and a future. And it has like multiple perspectives because we talked about gratitude as a feeling and we talked about it as a response. And it's also a practice. And I really started reflecting on how gratitude is reflection. Really, it can be an action. Like you might not feel it. You might be searching for that feeling because it can lead to a feeling of contentment and joy. But sometimes it's an action and it's an observation. And in a world with so many complications happening and a world that's fast, I think it requires us to slow down, and it's an approach and perspective. So I like how you were talking about it. You're having this feeling in yourself, you're looking for a feeling in a visitor, but it also just requires us to place a lot of thought into whatever it is we're trying to cultivate that gratitude around. So I like, I'm kind of like into this idea that it's such an observation, it's an approach, and it requires us to have intention to slow down and to think about it like Kristen did when she was on her tour and she thought about what she was thankful for. I think that could be a really neat practice for someone to go through their day or go through their week. And instead of just saying thank you, say, really make an observation, like what are you thankful for, and just throw that on the table as well. So really interesting topic, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
John also unmuted, and if we can, Rita, why don't we give John the last word? I'll do the wrap up and then we will officially be done, but Rita has already said she would stick around for more conversation after our official ending. So John, you wanna have the last word?
Oh, well, thank you for including me. It's very affirming to hear other people speaking authentically about the challenges they're facing and how they're navigating them and how they are trying to apply them. I think this is something that I'm still grasping at myself and trying to sort through. And hearing all of you work through it in a group is it's very helpful. And so glad that we had this time together.
All right, thank you. And huge thank you to Rita. So appreciative that you came here today and led us through this. Just super quick. And like I said, I'm going to do a quick little wrap up because we do try to end before the hour, but Rita has indicated she's happy to keep the conversation going, even though I have to, it's not about me, but I do have to jump away and start teaching a CIG. Just a couple of last things. We have been running this trainer to trainer conversation for a while, and it's been a mix of things that first off, the four of us did. We're now kind of into this idea of let's bring other folks in, and Rita was our inaugural guest trainer. So TBD, we're going to keep this going. If other folks are interested, if they have ideas they'd like to bring and share and discuss, let one of us know. You can always find out what we're up to out on messagemindset.com. And this presentation has been recorded. It will be put up on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and revisit some of the good ideas that were shared. And thank you all very much for giving us some time on your Friday.